What's up, Doc? Welcome to the Docs Get Money podcast. Are you a badass doctor killing it professionally and has bigger dreams than just clocking in and out of the hospital? Do you want to leave behind a legacy that is as lit as an HBCU homecoming? Want to know how other doctors are getting to the big bag? That's right, making 5, 6, and 7 figures without putting on the white coat? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Kimberly, but you can call me Kim or KB. I went from being a burnt out and overwhelmed emergency physician to the founder and CEO of 2 6-figure non-clinical companies and beating burnout along the way. I'm also your business coach, here to help you make money moves to change the world. This podcast isn't just about making money, though. It's about leveling up your life, mindset, and bank account so you can build an empire that's as iconic as Beyonce. You ready? Let's get into it. Hey, Doc. Burned out? Ready to just burn the whole hospital down? Well, let's start a fire. Okay, no, not in the hospital, but in your bank account. And from Side Hustler to CEO, my signature one-on-one business coaching program, you'll transform your burnout into a fire and start your own profitable coaching, consulting, or midterm rental business and make clinical cash in 90 days or less. That's right, 4 or 5 figures in 90 days or less. This is only for doctors who are done being overworked and undervalued and need a way out of the hospital now. With your fire offer, you're not just dreaming about escaping clinical practice, you're building your own emergency exit. In 90 days, you could be your own boss, making bank, and actually enjoying your life again. So are you ready to swap those singed scrubs for CEO status? Then hit me up at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram with the word burn, and let's turn that burnout into the bag. What's up, Doc? Welcome back to yet another episode of the Docs Get Money podcast. It is so good to have you back. Today is another interview episode with one of my clients, Dr. Biosha Jones. You all probably remember an episode with her. I don't even remember what episode it was that I had her on. I'd have to look back, and I will definitely drop the link to our previous episode in our show notes. But today, I want to have a different conversation with Dr. Biosha because she, like I said, is one of my clients inside of From Side Hustle to CEO, and she is one of the rock stars that I have been so privileged to work with. Dr. Biosha has had no business experience, no entrepreneurship background, didn't even know that she wanted to be a coach until she talked to me. That's another thing. But she has been able to create over $12,000 in her brand new coaching business as a brand new life coach, and has been able to start changing lives because of that. So I want to just hear a little bit from her and want you to hear more from her about her story, her journey, her trials, her tribulations, but also how working with a coach, and more specifically working inside of From Side Hustler to CEO, has helped her to get to this journey and get to this point in her business. So many entrepreneurs do not make any money in their business, let alone $12,000. So this is a moment to celebrate. Every dollar, every milestone, of course, is a moment to celebrate. But I wanted to make sure that we captured and highlighted her journey. And if anyone out there is thinking about starting their own coaching side hustle, maybe they don't want to do a whole full-fledged business and quit medicine right now and say, okay, I'm opening up a business and doing all of that. Dr. Biosha is still a practicing emergency physician. She still works shifts. We talk about that all the time when we have our one-on-ones together. But what is it like from another person's perspective who is a coach and a practicing physician, and being able to balance the two? So Dr. Biosha Jones, thank you so much for joining me again for another episode. I've said a lot about you already, of course, but please tell the audience a little bit about you if they don't remember you from the last time.
Well, thank you, Coach K, Dr. Brown, for having me back again. This is so cool. It just feels like such a full circle moment. For those that may not have listened to my prior podcast episode, I am a ER doctor, much like Dr. Brown herself. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I went to medical school in Houston, trained in Southern California, and now I'm living in West Texas as a brand new attending, like a year and a half of experience under my belt now. And essentially, there was a point, sometime I think in residency, where I just it just was not a very conducive situation for me to be my most authentic self there. I was one of the doctors that was a part of the COVID 2020 graduating class. Graduation was canceled, got straight into work literally a month or two after everything started, and we had no idea that this was going to be our truth. Spending 12 to 14 hours every single day in full personal protective equipment, with the gowns, with the gloves, with the N95 and a surgical mask, was suffocating, to say the very least. And I would say that from a physical and an emotional standpoint as well.
Yeah.
I just didn't really get a chance to express myself the way that I normally like to. Like, I like to wear my hair out and about, or I would like to have a lot of color in my hair, much like this. Or, like to wear colorful scrubs or do something to just kind of make me know who I am and remember who I am when I'm at work in the trenches. But I didn't get a chance to do that because of how incredibly dangerous and life-threatening the situation was every single day at work. And as somebody that was the only black person in my class of 18, and at the entire point of my program, I was 2 of 50. I also just did not necessarily have the experience where I always felt like I could be authentic to myself in that way as well. I honestly had great co-residents. I've heard so many horror stories of people that deal with this and have had similar backgrounds. And I do think that my program was as supportive as it could be, but I just did not have as much representation as I like, or people that were in the trenches with me that also looked like me and had similar experiences. And so all of those things combined, I really think led me to a point where I just was not being true to who I am as a person, who I know myself to be. And, obviously people that I love and that love me could obviously tell that I was not being very truthful to myself either. I didn't really go out a lot. I stayed home. I just stayed to myself and just did not say or do a whole lot of things outside of work. And even when I was at work, I just was not in a very happy state. And that was something that seemed to persist even after things sort of calmed down after the pandemic. And so that was something that still persisted within me. And so I realized, I think during my third and final year of residency, that this was not something that was very conducive to me. I ultimately was not doing as great of a job clinically because I did not have that confidence within myself to say what I mean and mean what I say. I questioned myself. I doubted myself every step of the way. And, when you put the energy out into the world, other people will give it back to you 10 times. And if you black and a woman, it would be 1,000 times. And so it was just a really negative cycle that just continued to feed onto itself. And I had to really stop and say enough is enough. And take my confidence back, take my power back, and become who I am, because ultimately the people that gonna judge you, and the people that not are not. And so I might as well be myself, because life will just continue to pass you by if not. And when I decided to do that for myself, I became a better doctor. I became a whole lot more authentic, and I was able to continue to connect with my patients, continue to connect with family members, and really just back to being me. And I think that when I realized the power of the mind and that mindset and that mentality shift and reframe, then that's when I said, oh, people are dealing with this. It's not just me. This is not something that I'm just going to blame on myself, because to be honest with you, a lot of things on the external environment were working against me. But a lot of people need that. A lot of people need to know that that's not necessarily something that anyone is putting you through, but you do have to get yourself out of it. And you do have to make the decision to take your life back and be back centered within yourself. And so at that point, that's when I say, Let me go ahead and talk with Coach Kim because we are in a similar group chat, and I was writing a lot of my experiences down. I wanted to talk to her really about book writing, and then she was like, you can start changing lives now. You don't have to wait until you drop the book, which is coming. That's still on the way, but you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
wait until you drop the book before you start changing people's lives and having that impact on people that you want to have. People are
Mm-hmm.
dealing, these are real problems. These are real things that people are dealing with now.
Absolutely.
Someone on this podcast is going to be listening, and this is going to be something that they're dealing with now. And it's not even residency, it's attending hood as well, if we're being honest with it. Or other jobs. People, women of color, people in high achieving careers dealing with the same stuff. Because
Yeah.
ultimately,
It's the
these
same oppressive
yeah,
systems that we both
it's the
we're
same
all in.
recurrent oppressive systems that we're working in that are permeating in different ways depending on your job.
Right.
And so she told me, you can change lives now. You can impact people now. You can help people get out of that mentality, take their truth back, be authentic to themselves, and step into their power now. And so when she told me that, I said, oh, well, maybe I will do that. And so that's when I actually decided to step into life coaching, which honestly has been very, very rewarding. I ain't
Uh-huh.
gonna hold you. It's been great. It's been great.
I was gonna ask you because I've never directly asked you like after I said that to you, because we had a couple of different conversations before we decided to actually start working together. So
Yes.
when I told you that, I'm so curious to know like how you were receiving it because and I believe how I teach sales and having sales conversations and talking to people about their desires, their goals, things like that. You're gonna have to say things that are like uncomfortable for you.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
to say, but it needs to be said at the same time. So I'm just curious. I know, I mean, I was right, clearly, but at the same time, I'm just curious about more about how you felt, if you can think about that in the moment. Like, because you had come to me, like you said, with the book outline and you were thinking about, well, so should I self-publish this? Should I go after, a publisher? And I was real honest with you. I'm like, yeah, self-publishing, you can do it. It's ghetto, but what's your marketing plan on that? And what's this and what's that? And you're like, oh, I didn't think about all of these things. So when it kind of loops back around to changing lives now, what were some of the other thoughts that came up for you when I said that?
Well, the first thing that I thought was I just didn't think it just did not occur to me that that was something that I could do.
Hmm.
And I guess the first thing that I thought about was, or the reason why I didn't think that that was something that I could do is that I said, am I actually ready to do this? I am just one person. I have had a multitude of experiences, yes, but is that enough to impact
Hmm.
people now? Or do I need to continue to prepare? Do I need to continue to do my research? Do I need to, um, just continue to work things on the back end to make sure that this is something that people would actually resonate with?
Hmm.
So that
And
was the first thing.
okay. And then how did you get through that? Because that's a very legitimate question. I think people that are considering coaching and hear about coaching and hear about changing lives, and of course with the fact that we've gone through training for like 10 plus years in order to get here, we feel like everything needs to have some level of certification or verification or outside stamp of approval. How did you get to the point where you decided that what I went through in residency and how I got myself out of it was enough, and it's enough to move forward to help someone else?
That is a great question. Well, you absolutely had a lot to do with that in terms of the coaching that I received from you. I think that the other thing that really helped me was realizing that sometimes the experience and the relatability is half of the battle. Like people just need to be able to connect with your story and understand where you're coming from. And so if you're
Hmm.
coming from a place of authenticity, then you can connect with people. And when you do get a chance to connect with people, you can have honest conversations about what it is that might be working, what it is that might not be working, what it is that people might have concerns about, fears about, doubts about, and then move forward from there. And so for me, I had to kind of do a lot of self-reflecting and realize that the experiences, the lived experiences that I've had and the wisdom that I've obtained from those experiences and continue to get from the experiences of being a Black ER doctor, etc., are just continued pieces of evidence bank that this is something that is incredibly impactful for the person that it's meant to be for. And so when I did a lot of reflecting, it really made me realize the number of things that I've dealt with, the number of things that I've dealt with quietly, with grace, and that I've never even taken the time to acknowledge that could be of significant help for other people. I also, something that you made me think about as well when we had our coaching sessions is that you have been doing this for a long time without pay. And this is something that, people gravitate to you for, which I absolutely think that that is true. And so this is something that you may not have had the certification for in that moment, but ultimately this is your life's training and your life story is exactly what has led you to this moment, and that is what makes me ready. And so that was something that you told me during one of our coaching sessions, or maybe it was before, but it's something that's really stuck with me because you think about it all the time about who impacts you and what it is that you can resonate with and connect with. And it's not necessarily those things. It's really the experiences and the message that comes from the stories that we tell that carry the most weight. And so when you put it that way, I said, well, let me just organize my little brain a little bit. Let me just figure out what I've been going through. Let me dig back. I do a lot of writing, so let me go back to the trenches and see what we was talking about up in there. And I realized that there's a certain depth to that I absolutely have and that I have been prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying all of that because some of these things I'm like, damn, I said all that to you. Oh, but I
Yes,
guess
you
I
did.
did.
Yes, you did. You said that,
I guess
period.
I did. And then the other thing that we talked about as well is that, and I think this is the most, for me, this might not be the same for you, but what's been most impactful because you said that you haven't came out with the book yet. Like the book is not canceled. Like it's not, it's just on hold for a minute. But at the same time, you were able to use your book outline, all of the chapters, excuse me, of your book that you had outlined to transform that into your coaching program. So what was that experience like? And I would say, and how has it been realizing that you basically had, the way you were going to change lives for people, like right there at your own hand? You had already kind of done all the hard work on it already. What was that like?
Yeah. So I think first of all, it was reaffirming of what it was that you said the first time, that your life
Hmm.
experiences and the stories that we tell create the impact that's needed now and that you can have now with the coaching. And
Hmm.
so um it was something that I didn't even think of. Another thing where I was like, I had no idea that that was actually something that, you know, that could be used in such a way. Now, right? Like
Hmm.
I absolutely plan on and still continue to plan on having those things in the book for people to enjoy to read at their leisure at that time. But it was also something else that I just did not cross my mind that I was actually able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and that's part of the thing too, is that there's so many things that we can do that we're not doing because you just don't even have that connection to say, oh, I
Yeah.
can do this. Or, oh, this is not anything outside of my reach. And so when you have that moment where the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, absolutely, I can do that. Oh, absolutely, I have the ability to do that. And if I don't know, I'm gonna figure it out.
Hmm.
When you have that level of when you're that anchored in the belief in yourself and your capabilities, the limit is really, there is no limit. The sky is the limit. You can do everything. You can do all things. You can do hard things. And so it was really just that connection that I really needed to make the realization that I could touch people now. And so I will be honest and say that there was a level of vulnerability that I really wasn't aware of until I actually started to do that in term. Let me be more specific. So when I started reading through some of the chapters that I've written, or some of the other content that maybe not be in the book, but it's in an outline or something like that, that's not yet in the manuscript, I didn't realize how vulnerable I was going to feel, because it was a much more immediate sharing with the world that I wasn't doing yet, because it's not a published book yet. But again, when you think about it from the perspective of, people need to hear that. There's someone out there that is going to be blessed by this content, that is going to change their mind, it's going to reframe that perspective that they need to get to that next level. Then I said, okay, let's do it. I'm all
That's so
in.
real. That's so real. I'm so glad that you brought up vulnerability, because I think what holds people back the most in entrepreneurship, like I said, you're a brand new entrepreneur, brand new coach, all of those things, is that they are not ready to feel that level of vulnerability, that level of exposure, that potential for embarrassment when things
Mm-hmm.
don't always go the way you expect them to go, and you put yourself out there for social media, the world, to look at you a different way. That's what definitely holds you back. And I think that's also, and I know for a fact, let me not say I know for a fact that's why you've been so successful, because you are willing to be vulnerable. Are you spreading all of your public information out on the internet to see? No, but you are telling stories of your life that actually happened, that were painful, that were difficult, that was not at your best. Like, you're not out here just trying to paint yourself out to be, this superhero. You're telling people exactly what it took for you to get there, and for what lessons that you learned along the way. And so, that thank you for embracing that vulnerability, because you have to, in some
Yeah,
level, some
you
shape or
absolutely
form.
do.
As an entrepreneur, in order to make money, you have to be vulnerable. You got to get
Mm,
embarrassed sometimes. You have to feel that level of embarrassment, and may not be like, oh, went viral and got dragged on social media or things like that. But there's still something that you have to risk, in order for the sale to be made, for the relationship to be formed, or any of that. So, I honestly think that's one of your superpowers, is that you're vulnerable and that you're willing to share and to be honest with people.
I appreciate that. And to go back on your point, that's anything in life that's worth getting, you absolutely have to be vulnerable. And we have to be vulnerable all the time with our jobs. Like, as an ER doctor, I could have died from COVID. I could have contracted COVID, all sorts of things that could have happened, just from being in the front line. And that was the whole purpose of being in the front line, is that you don't know what is going to happen. And
Right.
so there is a level of vulnerability that happens, regardless of what it is that you're choosing to do. And I'm sure that there are level of vulnerabilities that exist from other high achieving jobs. And so if I can be vulnerable at this job, and I can be vulnerable in this space, then I should absolutely be willing to value myself enough to do it for myself and create something for myself as well.
I love that. That's so true. We must not just be willing to risk ourselves for other people. We have to risk ourselves for ourselves at the end of
Yeah, for other
the
jobs,
day.
no. Let me go
No.
ahead and take some of this power back.
Exactly. Exactly. So tell us now about what you do as a life coach. Tell us everything. Tell us the name of your program. Tell me who you typically work with, and I'll get into the nitty gritty about, like, you, I guess, creating and launching your first business or your first offer and all of those things. But just tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you work.
Yes, so I created Be Out Loud. That's the name of my life coaching program. It's essentially a 6 month long program where I do one on one sessions twice a month, specifically with women, people of color, marginalized populations who are in high achieving careers that essentially create the situations that we have already discussed, where you either don't feel like you can be yourself at work, or you may have lost yourself along the way. Maybe you have a little bit of doubt, or a lot of doubt, let's be honest, about who it is that you can be. Maybe you're worried about some certain stereotypes that exist at work, and you don't think that you can be yourself. Been there. And so a lot of people, this is just something that tends to happen to people of color, women, people of multiple identities that come from a marginalized background, when you are high achieving in a place that doesn't look like you. Or maybe it's a place where you have people that look like you, but for different reasons, you don't feel empowered to be yourself. You don't feel empowered to be authentic to yourself. Or maybe you don't even know her anymore, child. You don't even know who she is. She left the building a long time ago. I didn't even think about that. Those sorts of situations exist for a reason. And so those are the people that really I'm calling in with Be Out Loud. Because ultimately, what I learned is, we need you. There are people that need you in spaces that you dwell. They need to see your light, and they need to see your light shine brightly, because ultimately when you do that, you illuminate someone else's light and you help them shine brighter. And so that is the entire concept of what it is that I'm doing. I'm helping people be out loud and be authentic to themselves, make sure that they are speaking their truth, advocating for themselves within the workplace. But who are you outside of work also, right? Like, again, do you know who you are? And so those are really the people that the program was established for, and why I do it. And it is called Be Out Loud for a reason, because a lot of times, like I said, with the N95, with the surgical mask, I was, I would say, physically and emotionally silenced for a lot of time that persisted. And when my voice was not being heard, or was not lending my voice, and that led people to speak for me. Right? And I think a lot of people can understand that too, that you don't need people speaking for you. You need to speak for yourself. And that goes for a whole lot of different things. So that is essentially who my program was made for. Those are the type of clients that I'm looking for. And that is really the person that, let's have a conversation, sis. Let's figure it out.
I love that. I love that. So tell me about your experience of signing your first client. Because, of course, I know kind of the background, but share with the audience what it was like to sign your first client, because it's good to get to the point where, like, okay, I'm a coach and I can do this and all of that. It's like, okay, well, now I actually have to prove it and, like, start being the coach and actually start working with a client. So, and the first client is the hardest client to get, I would say, the most difficult mentally and all kinds of different things to get. But yeah, tell me about your journey in signing your very first client.
Yeah, so signing my first client was something that was incredibly exciting, and it was also nerve-wracking, right? Because something that I really enjoy about being a coach that's also a little bit heavier is the accountability. As a coach, I am my client's accountability partner. I'm the person that's making sure that, I'm asking the hard questions and we're getting to the bottom of it, is what it is that you want to accomplish. And so when I'm doing that, I am following up, obviously, because this is a longitudinal experience for myself and the client, but I'm also having to make sure that I am taking care of myself as well, right?
Yes.
Like, if I'm a life coach, if I am someone that is preaching about being authentic to myself, preaching about taking care of myself, preaching about setting appropriate boundaries for other people and being clear about what it is that I want, then that means that I need to be clear about that as well.
Yes.
And so the accountability that comes from the fact that I have to do those things was a little bit daunting at first, because I just wanted to make sure that that was something that I could deliver for myself and also for my clients. But ultimately, it's been a blast. I think the coolest part is really just seeing people get the results that they want. And something that I thought a lot about as an initial life coach is, what are milestones, right? Like, how can I say someone's being successful, someone is doing
Right.
good in this program, this is working for them, etc. But the real thing is what it is that they want, and are we accomplishing that? Are we working towards that goal? Are we creating mentalities and creating that confidence and that mental safety for that person to get there? And so when you do that, it becomes a lot more clear. And so with my first client, we are past the halfway point now with her. And so far, I've gotten really good feedback, largely because, again, we've had those conversations, and I'm just following up with her and making sure that she's taking care of business with what it is that she wants to do for herself. And it's worked out well for her so far.
I love that. Take me more behind the scenes. Like, how did you get, like, where did she come from? Of course, you don't need to tell me all of her details or personal details, but it's like, how did you even find this client? How did you start having conversations with her? And what were the calls like? Was the sales call like with her? When you,
Yeah.
and how did you feel when she said yes as well, too?
So, she was from social media.
Hmm.
This was a woman that I actually don't know personally beforehand. I've had plenty of conversations and calls with people that I do actually know, but signing my first client was someone that I didn't know before. She mentioned saying, that she wants a life coach because she is fits the description of somebody that is high achieving and is just really needing to get through a couple of workplace battles that she's getting through and getting clear about what it is that she wants. And so when I saw that, I said, "Oh, this is somebody that is she fits the description perfectly. She is a woman, and she is a high achieving woman as well. That sounds like she going through some things I done went through." So that's when I essentially reached out to her, started asking her a couple of questions about what it is, what challenges is it that she's facing, and what is it that she's hoping to accomplish. And so once we got a little bit more clear on that, I was able to hop on a call with her. She was not my first call for
Not by
sales
any
or
means. Was that your
decision
first
by
call?
any means. But there was still just a little bit of nerve. There was still a nerve wracking component to it because, like you said, like I said before, you just want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and that this is a good match. And I've had calls with people that it just wasn't a good match, or they were not in alignment with what it is that I was offering. But she was. And so when she said yes, I was very excited. I started just I went to the spa. I celebrated with that, and I said, "Okay, well, we signed, and now we got to get to work. Now the real work begins." And I was
Yes.
very excited about it.
Absolutely. I just want to congratulate you again. Of course, she is just your first client of many, and you have other clients that you're working with as well
Yes.
too. But there's something about your very first one, like I said, that is just like that journey. It feels like you can go from like 0 to 100. It seems like it's just like, well, you get lost in the weeds, and then all of a sudden everything just starts clicking, and you learn how to have the conversations and how to tell people how you're going to help them basically sell to them on sales calls, and then all of a sudden it just works, and then you're like, okay, this is my winning formula. This is what I need to do, and this is what I have. So I just want to celebrate you again, because like I said, the first is the hardest part, and that's what I really enjoy helping people to get to, is just like at least that number one. Because once you do something once, then it's just, you can do it again and again and again. Once you learn how to make money once in your business, it's like, okay, now you have a formula to go off of, and then you just rinse and repeat, and things keep going. So you've been
Oh,
clearly
absolutely.
doing that. Clearly
Yeah,
doing
I appreciate that. Your guidance has been incredibly integral into my success. So I appreciate that.
that.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
happy
And
to.
it's just one of them things too where as somebody like you mentioned before that doesn't have any entrepreneurial experience, it's like, wow, I did that
Hmm.
because I can do it and because I decided to bet on myself and take it upon myself to try it.
Yeah, that's so big. That's so true.
And I
Um,
think that's like entrepreneurship 101 is that you just have to bet on yourself, believe in
Yes.
yourself, and then actually take the executive actions of doing it. And so
Yes.
I was super excited.
Yes, that is literally like 95% of the battle. Like it's just what you believe and what you think about yourself, and just following through with the actions. Otherwise, I should say 80-20%. It's 80% your mindset, 20% what you do with that. So that's 100% true. So you said a couple of things. You said inside of From Side Hustler to the CEO, I've been able to help you with a lot of different things, but what do you think has been the most impactful, or do you think that has been like, yeah, the most impactful or the most helpful for you inside of From Side Hustler to CEO?
Man, the
Was it a
most
tool?
impact.
Was it like a conversation that we had?
I think it's, man, I can't say a combination because that's like not really fair, but that's really how I feel though.
Hmm.
I do think that the tools provided have been absolutely great in terms of exactly what I need. And as doctors, you kind of need just like some sort of blueprint, some sort of secret sauce that's like, okay, well, I got it, but if I don't know, I need something to fall back on. And so I
Yeah.
definitely feel like those tools have been that for me. Whether those were personal tools so that I can continue to grow in my own mentality as a new entrepreneur and become confident and be able to reframe perspectives, reframe mental blocks that I might be having so that I can continue to be successful or work past vulnerability, work past fear, work past uncertainty. And so um, the tools have absolutely been hands down incredibly solid and I think really important for my success.
Absolutely. Well, that's good to hear. I'd also ask, like you said before, was not the first sales call that you had with your very first client. You had other sales calls. So tell me about how learning sales inside of From Side Hustler to CEO. How was that experience? Because I guess maybe you should start with what were your thoughts about sales before
Oh,
you kind
scary.
of had the tools to actually learn how to sell, and then like what do you think about sales now? That's probably a good way to think about it too.
So it was certainly intimidating just because, again, coming from inexperience, especially someone that does not have entrepreneurs in my family to kind of fall back on,
Hmm.
the uncertainty there created a whole lot of doubt within my mind and a lot of fear within my mind about how is this going to work? How does this work? What happens if it does not work? And so that was a really big part for me that I had to kind of overcome was the sales and what that means and
Hmm.
what the next step should be and how do you actually do this? And so um, learning sales, I think from you in particular was something that was helpful because you make it incredibly clear. You, I think, do a great job of simplifying it, not oversimplifying it, but making sure that you don't get caught up in all the fluff
Hmm.
of things that are really just distractions from signing the first client or signing the second client. And that's something that I'm pretty sure is a big pitfall in entrepreneurship is that people get stuck in the fluff. They get stuck thinking about, oh, well, I need to do Instagram from this particular angle, or oh, I need to have the absolute perfect post. And, they just keep twiddling their fingers and doing all this stuff that doesn't actually do anything to create sales. And something that you did a great job of, I think, is keeping it simple and saying, this is what you need, and this
Hmm.
is how we're going to get it. And so simplifying it in that way while also taking the time to acknowledge just the vulnerable fearful component that comes with sales, I think was a winning combination for sure.
Thank you. I'm glad that it's been helpful. For those of you who are listening, my signature sales formula is called Sales Call Alchemy, where I teach you how to actually have sales conversations with people. Of course, the word sales is like saying the word shit in church, but to some people in their brain. But it's really not like that. I try to teach sales in a way that is just connection with people. It's just understanding other people's problems and then expressing your solution in a way to help them make a decision whether or not this is a good time, this is a good fit. And it's more of a natural, like I said, conversation that you're having. We as doctors are natural salespeople, whether we want to believe it or not, because we're empathetic, we're great listeners, and we know how to keep things simple and understandable for people. We don't walk around talking about, you have a pulmonary embolism with right heart strain and your troponin is 300 and your BNP. Like, people don't understand that. They
Right. You gotta break it
understand.
down.
Right. They understand you have a blood clot in your lungs and it's causing your heart a little bit of pressure. So we're going to put you on some oxygen and we're going to give you a clot buster and we're going to break up this clot so that your heart isn't under any stress anymore. They understand that. So when people are able to not only create a solution like a coaching program, like a consulting program, or even selling a midterm rental business, or providing a temporary housing for someone that needs, like I said, midterm rentals. It's all about just keeping it simple, connecting, being empathetic, and really understanding people. So I'm glad that, Biasha, you have been able to learn sales. It's not just like this nebulous thing, and I was been able to keep you like out of the fluff and out of the weeds of what people tend to get lost in. I agree, because I was lost in it in one moment at one point in time as well too. So I'm really glad that that helped you. I was going to ask you another question and I'm trying to remember what it was been. Oh, you said it. Maybe you said it, but I guess I'll ask you anyway. What's been your favorite part, like just of the experience in total of being coached, and then also what's been your favorite experience about being a coach as well too?
I think my favorite part about being coached is the evolution. Just kind of watching my own self grow from someone that didn't really know a whole lot about this stuff to somebody that to being somebody, and by this stuff I mean entrepreneurship, to being someone that signed multiple clients and is continuing to brainstorm how I want my business to expand and continue to see results for clients. That has been very cool. Like, even this podcast is a testament to that, because again, if I go back and I listen to my previous podcast and I listen to myself now, I'm sure that there are going to be two different versions of Biasha on those things, just because of that growth. And so, yeah, just being able to grow and have someone that is very much like-minded, Black woman, ER doctor, can vent a little bit about the absolute ludicrous situations that happen at work and beyond, on top of, getting this money, getting this bag, getting into this. If I ain't have nothing to sip, but if I did, but, like, just being able to be relatable in that way and in multiple ways has been incredibly awesome. And I think it's really spoken to me because I've been able to transform myself as well.
Yeah.
My favorite part about being a coach is, I think it's a couple different things. Number one, I think I just like using the creative side of my brain with coaching. I like being able to brainstorm, get a little bit creative about what it is I'm going to talk about. Like, okay, am I going to use certain posts, certain videos, certain pictures for social media? Like, okay, well, let's get back in touch with our emotions. Let's get back in touch with who we are as a person. Do we need to journal? Do we need to write about this? Like, do we need to kind of do some sort of emotional cleansing so we can get back clear on our goals? And I think that doing that, having these sorts of conversations and building both from the inside and other people is so cool. I just love being able to do something it's just something completely different from what we see and do every day.
Yeah.
And so I really like being able to do that. It honestly feels very refreshing. I think that it makes working better, because at the end of the day, I have other things that I do outside of this job that bring me fulfillment, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really like about being a coach is just having clients that get results. I like being able to, I mean, I ain't gonna hold you. Like, I really like when I get a chance to connect with someone who is dealing with something that maybe I've dealt with before and I was able to get past. And we're seeing the progress. We're seeing that same evolution that I like to see in myself when I'm being coached. And so I also think very special because this is just something, a space that we haven't been able to have before, right? Like, it's all sorts of historically, we as women, as black women, we should just be grateful that we are even here, right? Like in the past, it's been, you know what, you here, you a doctor, what else?
Right.
But I just love that now it's more of us taking our power back and saying, you know what? Yes, I'm very grateful for everything that, I was able to overcome and achieve to get here, but I want more and I'm going to get more.
Right. Yes.
So I love that. I love that. And I love being able to be around like minded people that are thinking the same thing. Like, you know what? I want more, so I'm going to go get it. And
Yeah.
coaching people to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's very cool.
No, that's so true. And I think that's not what I think. That's why I love from side hustler to CEO and the community that we have, because even though
Hmm.
we have one-on-one sessions, we are all in a separate community where we are talking throughout the weeks, the months in between sessions, and you're able to pour into other coaches, you're able to pour into other entrepreneurs, share, support each other, say, hey, I see you, keep going, offer advice, offer coaching as well too. But more specifically, what I love about each one of you all as my clients, of course I'm highlighting you today, but I love about each of you all is that we do not, none of us are accepting just the status quo that yes, we are doctors and that's it. We are taking on the role of entrepreneur, coach, consultant, and we are creating something from our own brains, and we are putting it out there to be sold because we know that there, like you said, there's more for us to have. But to be a part of a community that's like that is so critical, because entrepreneurship is lonely. Like you said, you are the only one. You were one of the few raisins in the oatmeal, one of two raisins in the oatmeal in your program, and you are the only entrepreneur in your family. So you didn't have anybody else to say,
Yeah.
oh, hey, auntie so and so, what did you do about this? Or hey, cousin so and so, what about that? You didn't have that level of support in that community. So being able to provide that for my clients and be a part of that myself, I get helped just being a part of it myself, even though I lead it. It's just like it's so fulfilling, and community is so important. So for you saying that, as well as just like, I want more and I want to go get it, I want to be around people like that, because that's how
Yeah.
you keep going, that's how you keep your business thriving. Well, you say, oh, I see so and so out here getting it, okay, if she can do it, I can do it too, so let me keep pushing.
Absolutely.
And sometimes
Absolutely.
that's on the only coaching that you need, is just to see that somebody else is out there doing that for themselves too. So I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, you ain't lying, because I think that within the community too is that you get all sorts of new ideas, like people doing awesome master classes, putting flyers up in their like doctor's lounge and stuff like that is so cool and so dope. And it's like, oh, you know what, let me or like you said, just being able, just kind of having a situation being like, has anyone dealt with this before? Because not
Right.
having that entrepreneurial mentorship built in is real. Like, not everybody had a family business that they were just going to inherit and had that experience from when they was a teenager. Some of us
Right.
really had to go out here and get it for ourselves. And
Right.
so being within that community of people that are out here trying to go get it for themselves is incredibly priceless and inspiring. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's lit.
absolutely. You know what? I'm sitting here thinking, and there's a couple of other things that you probably forgot about, but and I temporarily forgot about it as well too. A lot of times people will say that they don't have enough time to start a business, and you definitely did not allow time or
Oh
your circumstances
no, I
to
did
prevent
not.
you from launching a coaching business, even though you've never launched a coaching business before, you've never been an entrepreneur. Tell me, Do you want me to say it, or do you want me to?
I can
Do you
say it.
want
I
to
forgot
say
about that. I literally was studying for my board exams when I decided to launch this. I passed my written boards, amen, but in the emergency medicine, you have to take oral boards too.
it?
And I launched Be Out Loud in March of 2023, and I took that test in April. So, absolutely, you can make time for anything that you want to make time for. I absolutely studied, passed the oral boards as well, and was able to go ahead and start making calls, go ahead and start establishing the business that I want, and starting to I don't know. It was just one of those things where that is certainly a testament where I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I don't want to wait no more. Let's do it. You just
Yeah.
have to make, just like we said earlier. You just have to make that executive decision, and that's exactly what I did. And I'm very happy about it. I'm very happy about it, and that juggling that was hard, but you just have to be incredibly intentional with your time. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what I was. Like if I was at an airport, whether I was traveling to or from somewhere, I was either studying for them boards or trying to get together something, some content so that I can put it out into the world so that someone could hear from me, or I was learning about sales call alchemy, sending DMs, doing what I need to do for my entrepreneurship. So, as long as you are very intentional with your time and how you spend your time, we have the same 24 hours as Beyonce. It can be done. And at the end of the day, like you can put off the things that you want to do for yourself, but what else are you doing?
Absolutely. Not only were you studying for your oral boards, but you were also preparing to have your very first on stage
Oh,
speech.
yes.
Well, your first presentation about yourself. So, what we haven't talked about either, y'all. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to tell everything about Biasha. I'm trying to let her be humble a little bit, but I'm a brag on her at this point.
Period.
Also, when she came to me, she shared with me a video of a TED talk that she gave for her residency program, which they have like kind of like, I guess, their third year. You said third year residents kind of just do like a TED talk, like kind of the end, like lessons you learned, or just on something that you want to share with your
Yeah, you can
residency.
talk about whatever you want, but the goal is like a 15 or so minute talk in a TED style manner
Hmm.
on whatever topic. And yeah, so that's when I talked about that, and I talked a lot about the same stuff we talking about now, recurrent themes, because we've been building up to this, we've been working towards this for a long time. I
Right.
talked about, I even said it to him, like, it was certainly something to start this pandemic, have all of the racial unrest going on at the same
Right.
time, and be the only black person in your class.
Yeah.
But I found we went through some things. I found myself, and I am better for it. I'm a stronger person, doctor, friend, wife, etc., daughter for it. And so it was, I was baby. Had my little afro out and everything. I had my little fro pick just to get that right before, just to get that nice and right. And it was an awesome experience. And then when I was launching, when I actually launched Be Out Loud, I was in the process of getting ready for another talk that I was doing in May as well, which required weekly meetings. It was with Deshara Parker. If anyone's in the Dallas area, y'all know she don't play. She is an Emmy-winning journalist that is also a Virgo, so she is on her P's and Q's. So between me still being a new attending, right? Like less than a year into attending hood, studying for boards, getting my entrepreneurial stuff, and trying to get ready for that. Oh, we was busy. But the
Yeah.
thing was is that everything was in alignment. Everything
Yes.
was within what I want to do, and it was within my purpose of me
Hmm.
being out loud, me being authentic, and me being a blackety black woman who was out here trying to get it. And so when all of those things were in alignment, that made the work, even though it was hard, that made the work naturally easy. Things kind of came together, they blended together, and you just made do.
Yeah.
And
I
I
I
was
just I
very
guess I want to double tap on that, because when you share with me that video, I was like blown away because so many of your experiences as being a Black woman in residency, I of course had, but the fact that you had the platform and that you had the audacity and to actually articulate, you know, what you were feeling and what you had experienced throughout your years in residency. I definitely didn't feel that, but I was, when I watched it, I was just like, wow, this girl is incredible. Like the way you articulated yourself, the way that you shared your story, like I said, so like you said, so authentically and so vulnerably, you are a powerful dynamic speaker. And so that just added for me more fuel to tell you, like, girl, why are you waiting on this damn book? Like, you need to be doing this shit right now because you
Yeah.
have incredible skills of speaking, of sharing your story, of doing all of those things. So I brought that up to say that that is yet another superpower that you have of being a speaker and being able to have the confidence and like I said, the holding the vulnerability to being able to share your story in front of a predominantly white audience, because your residency program didn't all of a sudden just become, you know, Charles Drew or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a still very white program. But that's also something that I love to see you continue to do and continue to speak and share your story and things like that too. You have so many different amazing qualities, and like I said, that made it so much easier for me to be like, girl, why are you wait, yes, book, but what are you doing right now,
Right
because you have
now,
so much
yeah.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many stories that people can relate to that people need to hear to make sure that they don't feel alone, and
Hmm.
not and making sure that people don't feel alone is another thing that I really wanted to another reason why I kind of poured into this, because it's not a good feeling. That feeling of isolation, that feeling of loneliness, that feeling that no one can actually understand you,
Yeah.
and that also will silence you before you even realize you're not talking.
Right.
And that's not really something that I wish for people, especially not for, like I said, women, people of color, my people in particular. And so that was another reason why Be Out Loud was created, because you are not alone. And the second that you find the courage to use your voice for what it is that you want to use your voice for, and you're clear about that, the second you will find your people.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess tell us what's next on the horizon for you. What is your next entrepreneurial challenge? Of course, we have been working on sales. You've sold to multiple clients already. You're serving multiple clients. So what do you feel like is the next hurdle or challenge that you are working through as like I said, as an entrepreneur is concerned?
So, in terms of coaching in particular, I am in the process of getting my life coaching credentials. That's actually a little bit more extensive than I thought it was, and I'm fine with that. But that is also a process that I'm embarking on. I am going to start doing some more content creation for Instagram where I talk a little bit more, giving little short bite sizes, whether that is a little bit of more information about confidence and or some of the mental blocks that we go through, whether that's a couple of different stories that I might have, or that's just me living out loud, showing people exactly what it means to live a life out loud. I am going to start tapping into that aspect of social media, just so that we
Mm-hmm.
can continue to build these clientele, and most importantly continue to build loud and proud people so that they can continue to build loud and proud people.
I love that. Now, y'all, behind the scenes, I'm gonna tell your Biasha's business. I'm gonna tell my own business as well too. I have been trying to encourage Biasha. Let me get close in this microphone. I've been trying to encourage Biasha to start her own podcast, and I think she
Oh,
just dropped. That would have been such an amazing title for a podcast, "Loud and Proud." I love that. I don't know if that's taken, but because your speaking is so fire, because your life advice is so incredible. Like I said, I'm trying to get her to start a podcast, y'all. But we'll see. Maybe that'll be on some of our next sessions. We'll work through whatever issues she's got
crying.
about that.
Hey, it's like, let's just work past some of this anxiety or any sort of uncertainty that you got past that.
Exactly.
You ain't
Exactly.
lying. You ain't lying.
Well, whatever you do, I know that Be Out Loud is going to continue to be the successful multi-million dollar business that you told me that you wanted to build
Ooh,
at the beginning.
manifest.
And I appreciate you taking the audacity and the because we've been talking about audacity a lot, the audacity to believe in yourself and to start with just what you have and what you know. And also thank you again for trusting me and trusting From Side Hustler to CEO to help you to do that. So I guess with this last being the last question that I have for you, what advice or what things do you want to share with the listener out there who is a working doctor, who is maybe feels the same way as you, like maybe they're not, they don't come from an entrepreneurial background, they've never come from any type of business background, but they want to start their own life-changing business. What advice would you give to them?
I think the first thing is congratulations. Number one, there's someone out there that absolutely can benefit from something that you have to offer. But the second thing is, you just really have to know yourself and know what it is that is unique about you and really, really channel into that. The other thing that's hard about entrepreneurship is that, a lot of people are doing a lot of things now, right? Like we were talking about Fenty Beauty earlier. There's plenty of, L'Oreal, Mary Kay. There's already people doing that, right? And so that could have been something that was very intimidating for Rihanna, but she had to bring her own spin onto things, work past whatever doubt and fears that she may have had in her own mind to build her own brand. And so when you think about entrepreneurship, you can't really think about it in terms of, oh, well, there's already this number of people doing this, and what am I going to add to the table? You have to be confident in what it is that's unique about you, and you need to tap into that so that you can give that to the world, because that's what people will resonate with, and that is ultimately what will make you successful. So you really need to know yourself, understand your story, your why, so that when push comes to shove, things get difficult, and when that launch happens, you're standing firm in that. So you know who you are, and you don't lose yourself in the process.
I love it. Amazing advice. Docs Give Money podcast listeners, if you want to connect with Dr. Biosha, her Instagram is going to be in the show notes. Dr. Biosha Jones, thank you so, so much for gracing the Docs Give Money podcast yet another time. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this space, this platform, and for helping me get that bag.
Not a problem.
Y'all have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Docs Get Money podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday wherever you find your favorite podcast. Share, comment, follow, and subscribe to the Docs Get Money podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to know more, visit me, Dr. Kimberly Brown, at KimberlyBrownMD.com, and be sure to follow me at Dr. Kimberly B on Instagram. And until next time, let's go get this money, honey.